Welcome, everybody, to the second annual Free at Last Speaker meeting of Narcotics Anonymous. My name is Lenny B. I am a recovering addict. Let's take a moment of silence to pray for the addict who still suffers, followed by the serenity prayer. God,
grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
So I've asked Ben to read Who's an Addict.
I'm an addict named Ben.
Ben.
Who is an addict? Most of us do not have to think twice about this question. We know. Our whole life and thinking was centered in drugs in one form or another. The getting, using, and finding ways and means to get more. We lived to use and used to live. Very simply, an addict is a man or a woman whose life is controlled by drugs. We are people in the grip of a continuing and progressive illness whose ends are always the same. Jails, institutions, and death. Thanks for letting me read.
Thank you, Ben. We've asked Dylan to read. What is the NA program?
I'm Dylan. I'm an addict.
Hi, Dylan.
What is the Narcotics Anonymous program? NA is a non-profit fellowship or society of men and women for whom drugs have become a major problem. We're recovering addicts who meet regularly to help each other stay clean. It's a program of complete abstinence from all drugs. There's only one requirement for membership, the desire to stop using. We suggest that you keep an open mind and give yourself a break. Our program is a set of principles written so simply that we can follow them in our daily lives. The most important thing about them is that they work. There are no strings attached to NA, not affiliated with any other organizations. We have no initiation fees or dues, no pledges to sign, no promises to make to anyone. We're not connected with any political, religious, or law enforcement groups, and under no surveillance at any time. Anyone may join us regardless of age, race, sexual identity, creed, religion, or lack of religion. Not interested in what or how much you used, who your connections were, what you've done in the past, how much or how little you have, but only what you want to do about your problem and how we can help. The newcomer is the most important person at any meeting because we can only keep what we have by giving it away. We have learned from our group experience that those who keep coming to our meetings regularly stay clean.
Thanks for reading.
Thank you, Dylan. And I've asked Krista to read why we're here.
I'm Krista and I'm an addict. Whew. Why are we here? Before coming to the fellowship of NA, we cannot manage our own lives. We cannot live and enjoy life as other people do. We had to have something different, and we thought we had found it in drugs. We placed the use ahead of the welfare of our families, our wives, husbands, and our children. We had to have drugs at all costs. We did many people great harm, but most of all, we harmed ourselves. Through our inability to accept personal responsibilities, we were actually creating our own problems. We seem to be incapable of facing life on its own terms. Most of us realized that in our addiction, we were slowly committing suicide. But addiction is such a cunning enemy of life that we had lost the power to do anything about it. Many of us ended up in jail or sought help through medicine, religion, and psychiatry. None of these methods was sufficient for us. Oh, I'm so out of breath. Our disease always resurfaced or continued to progress until in desperation we sought help from each other in Narcotics Anonymous. After coming to NA, we realized we were sick people. We suffered from a disease from which there is no known cure. It can, however, be arrested at some point, and recovery is then possible.
Thanks for reading.
You did a great job. Thank you, Krista. I've asked Corey to read how it works.
I'm an addict named Corey.
Corey.
How it works. If you want what we have to offer and are willing to make the effort to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. These are the principles that made our recovery possible. 1, we admitted that we were powerless over our addiction, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3, we made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5, we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6, we were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7, we humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8, we made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9, we made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10, we continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to addicts and to practice these principles in all our affairs. This sounds like a big order, and we can't do it all at once. We didn't become addicted in one day, so remember, easy does it. There is one thing more than anything else that will defeat us in our recovery. This is an attitude of indifference or intolerance towards spiritual principles. 3 of these that are indispensable are honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. With these, we are well on our way. We feel that our approach to the disease of addiction is completely realistic, for the therapeutic value of one addict helping another is without parallel. We feel that our way is practical, for one addict can best understand and help another addict. We believe that the sooner we face our problems within our society and everyday living, just that much faster do we become acceptable, responsible, and productive members of that society. The only way to keep from returning to active addiction is not to take that first drug. If you are like us, you know that 1 is too many and 1,000 never enough. We put great emphasis on this, for we know that when we use drugs in any form or substitute one for another, we release our addiction all over again. Thinking of alcohol as different from other drugs has caused a great many addicts to relapse. Before we came to NA, many of us viewed alcohol separately, but we cannot afford to be confused about this. Alcohol is a drug. We are people with the disease of addiction who must abstain from all drugs in order to recover.
Thanks for reading.
Thank you, Corey. Thank you, Corey. And we've asked Jack to read the 12 traditions.
My name's Jack, I'm an addict.
Jack!
The 12 traditions of NA. We keep what we have only with vigilance, and just as freedom for the individual comes from the 12 steps, so freedom from the group springs from our tradition. As long as the ties that bind us together are stronger than those that will tear us apart, all will be well. 1. Our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends on NA unity. 2. For our group purpose, there is but one ultimate authority, a loving God as he may express himself in our group conscience. Our leaders are but trusted servants, they do not govern. 3. The only requirement for membership is the desire to stop using. 4. Each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or NA as a whole. 5. Each group has but one primary purpose, to carry the message to the addict who still suffers. 6. An NA group ought never endorse, finance, or lend the NA name to any related facility or outside enterprise, lest problems of money, property, or prestige divert us from our primary purpose. 7. Every NA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. 8. Narcotics Anonymous should remain forever non-professional, but our service centers may employ special workers. 9. NA as such ought never be organized, but we may create service boards or committees directly responsible to those they serve. 10. Narcotics Anonymous has no opinion on outside issues, hence the NA name ought never be drawn into public controversy. 11. Our public relations policy is based on attraction rather than promotion. We need always maintain personal anonymity at the level of press, radio, and films. 12. Anonymity is the spiritual foundation of all our traditions, ever reminding us to place principles before personalities. Understanding these traditions comes slowly over a period of time. We pick up information as we talk to members and visit various groups. It usually isn't until we get involved with service that someone points out that personal recovery depends on NA unity, and that unity depends on how well we follow our traditions. The 12 traditions of NA are non-negotiable. They are the guidelines that keep our fellowship alive and free. By following these guidelines in our dealings with others and society at large, we avoid many problems. That is not to say that our traditions eliminate all problems. We still have to face difficulties as they arise: communication problems, differences of opinion, internal controversies, and troubles with individuals and groups outside the fellowship. However, when we apply these principles, we avoid some of the pitfalls. Many of our problems are like those that our predecessors had to face. Their hard-won experience gave birth to the traditions, and our own experience has shown that these principles are just as valid today as they were when these traditions were formulated. Our traditions protect us from the internal and external forces that could destroy us. They are truly the ties that bind us together. It is only through understanding and application that they work.
Thanks, Jack. Could we have Casey read We Do Recover?
Hi, my name's Casey and I'm an addict.
Casey.
We do recover. When at the end of the road we find that we can no longer function as a human being, either with or without drugs, we all face the same dilemma. What is there left to do? There seems to be this alternative: either go on as best we can to the bitter ends, jails, institutions, or death, or find a new way to live. In years gone by, very few addicts ever had this last choice. Those who are addicted today are more fortunate. For the first time in man's entire history, a simple way has been proving itself in the lives of many addicts. It is available to us all. This is a simple, spiritual, not religious program known as Narcotics Anonymous.
Thanks for reading.
Thank you, Casey. We will pass the basket for a seventh tradition, which states that every NA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contribution. 50% will go to world or area. It will go to... donations will go towards the... I apologize. It will go towards our next speaker jam next year in May. And donated, and the rest, the 50% will go to Desert High Area NA. Please place your Get Well cards. If you have a Get Well card, you know, a little green, yellow, whatever color it is, Get Well card in the basket. We will have them available back to you after the speaker meeting. Okay.
Thanks,
So my journey in Narcotics Anonymous has been very pleasant. And because of Zoom, this event, because of some people that went to Zoom in my home group and all come together and put this stuff together, because of Zoom, we met this guy, Brian, and out of Philadelphia, and he's great, you know. When we talk about knowing somebody in Narcotics Anonymous, got about 500 hours on FaceTime with this guy. And it's been a great journey just in the 5-6 months that I've been knowing the gentleman. And so he graciously came to fly out here in Idaho, which I'm not going to tell you what his wife said. I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to tell you. No, no, no. Because it was great. Okay, thank you. But he's graciously came out here to hang out with us addicts in Idaho, Boise, Napa, Caldwell, our area, and to share his experience, strength, and hope, which I'm really grateful that he did. So with no more further ado, man, Idaho, welcome Brian Mack from Philadelphia.
Secretary, Lenny.
I'm an addict named Brian.
Hey, Brian.
Hi, everybody. I'm grateful to be here. I want to thank God for still having the willingness to do what it takes to stay clean. I don't try to take that for granted ever. Just there was a nice period of my life where I had no willingness to do anything but get one more. So the fact that my spirit and my mind has been transformed to a place to where I'm still willing to do what it takes to not put drugs in me and show up to NA is amazing to me, right? So if you've been clean for 24 hours or less, then that's too much time to give back. So I've been clean. My clean date's March 28th, 1994, and you don't have to be impressed with my clean time. You gotta be impressed with yours. They told me, B, if you ain't impressed with your clean time, the disease is going to be impressed with your relapse, right? So you know, I'm impressed with my clean time. I mean, because if you in here, you in Idaho, and you're sitting in this room, you probably use drugs and there's a problem. So, because nobody be sitting in the room for fun. Unless Lenny threatened you. I heard Lenny threatening people saying he's going to fire them and, you know, if you didn't come. So if you sit in here, you know what it's like to use. You know, so I'm grateful for the willingness to still do what it takes, man. And the whole Zoom thing, this past year has been absolutely eye-opening in a variety of ways. But I'll tell you that, and I love anything that has to do with NA at this stage, I'm in love with. I have a real love. I'm in love with Narcotics Anonymous. It's like the Notebook movie or something. I have a real relationship. I'm infatuated with anything that happens in regards to NA. I want to read all the books. I want to read the pamphlets. I want to talk about it. I want to go to every NA community. You know, I love NA and I love addicts. You know, so when we got locked down last year, you know, and got catapulted into like this two-dimensional digital space, I wasn't excited to not be outside, but I was excited that Narcotics Anonymous didn't miss a beat and that we were able to jump right in. And then so I'm not going to tell you all the stories about, you know, I'll tell you one or two Zoom stories. Like I was in my kitchen and my phone rang and it said Hamza something, right? And I don't have any friends named Hamza. So, and it was like a video. You ever get like a video Facebook call from a stranger? That's a little weird in itself. So I'm looking at the thing and I'm like, I just answered it. And this dude's like, hey man, my buddy Jimmy Jam gave me your number. I live in Egypt. And I'm like, oh, all right. And like he had the Egypt background. And I'm like looking at this dude. He's like, Jimmy said you could help my home group get on Zoom because we can't figure out. And Jimmy said you could help us. So now I've talked to this dude. He's like my best friend. Like Lenny. I got Lenny. I got Hamza in Egypt. I got this other dude, Aaron C. in Turkey. You know, so Zoom, you know, jumping on that platform has given us as a fellowship the ability to connect with people that we would have never, ever connected with. But I'll tell you what it doesn't do, which I didn't realize until my first meeting back off of, you know, I did like 9 months in a house in Philadelphia. Like, you know, we live in these row homes and everybody's on top of each other and Philly wasn't opening nothing. They're still masked up. If you walk into a store in Philadelphia today and you don't have a mask on, they're looking at you like you just killed their mother, right? So it was nice to come out here and people were like, I was wearing a mask and they were looking at me funny. You know, so it's nice to kind of be in a different scenario. But what I didn't realize until I went to a meeting back, the first meeting back was, you know, because I made 10,000 meetings on Zoom. I started 11 home groups on my Zoom account, right? Because I'm an addict and, you know, anybody need help, hey, I'll put on my account. You know, put on my account. So I was in a meeting every day and speaker jams and, you know, so I did a bazillion Zoom meetings. You know, well, if you're an NA cop, I'll help you out because I got a lot of NA cops in Philadelphia. There's no such thing as a Zoom meeting. It's a Narcotics Anonymous meeting that meets on Zoom. Zoom's the landlord, right? So I'm not endorsing finance or lending the NA name. Just in the spirit of time, I'm just calling it a Zoom. It's an NA meeting on Zoom. But when I left to go to the first meeting I ever went to outside, like around September, I picked up a reading. I had to read, you know, and I said, you know, I'm an addict named Brian. This is how it works. And before I jumped in to say how it works, a room full of people said, hey, Brian. And I'm telling you, when I heard the people say my name, it literally brought a tear to my eye, man. Because I hadn't realized, I hadn't heard, Zoom's cool. But when you read or something, or you're sharing and you're like, I'm an addict named Brian.
Hey, Brian.
No, I'm talking about on Zoom. It's crickets. You'll hear nothing. You're like, can the people hear me? Or you tell a joke and they're just like, you see a bunch of, I don't know if they're laughing. You might be laughing at their kid or something behind the, you know, you don't know what's going on. So I didn't realize that hearing people, so then it dawned on me that it had been 26 years had gone by. Right? I've been clean for 26 and a half years or something. And that no more than 7 days had gone by in 26 and a half years where I hadn't heard a room full of people say my name. Whether I was sharing, speaking, reading a reading, doing the keychains, sharing from the floor. At some point, at least once a week, for 26 years, I did something to get the group to say my name. And I didn't realize until then that itself is a power greater than me. Yeah. Just hearing the connection of people, and it really dialed in the idea of what our first tradition talks about, where our personal recovery, it says our common welfare should come first. Personal recovery depends on NA unity. And I connected to that more so than I ever had September 2020. So I want to just dial it back a little bit and tell you that I'm a hater by trade. Like, I had the disease of addiction, and I'm a hater. So if you don't know what a hater is, it means I'm jealous, I'm insecure, I'm emotional. If you have it and I don't, you can go F yourself, right? If you're in a healthy relationship and I'm in a crazy relationship, I'm talking about, well, wait till she cheats on you, right? If you just graduated college and you just got a good job, I'm thinking, oh, now you smarter than me? We're all the same in NA. You ain't smart. I'm a hater. This is my natural state, is just to separate myself and have to use the disease of addiction to put me into a corner where I can't identify with you so it can sneak attack me and get me to use one more, right? So all that stuff. So I tell you I'm a hater by trade to tell you that when newcomers come to NA, and if you're like me and you're an excited addict and you see a newcomer, sometimes I don't really think or consider or look through the perspective of when you get clean and stay clean for a little while, the recovery gives you a new set of glasses to see the world in, right? So the newcomer glasses get taken off, and you get these recovery glasses, so I'm like talking to him, I'm like, Brian, so now I got these recovery glasses, and the newcomer comes in, and I'll say, hey, listen, man, it's all good, it's easy, you can stay clean, all you gotta do is don't hang around anybody you ever talk to ever, right? Anything you've ever done, don't do it. Anything you think is wrong, right? Change your number. See this room of 200 people? Get to know all of them. These got to be your new best friends tomorrow, right? We like plaster the newcomer with, when you're new, it almost seems like, at least it did to me, I was like, this is impossible. There's no way I'm going to stay clean. Like I just got to change one thing, everything. You hear the cute stuff. I'm like, man, that seems easy for you, 20-year guy. I'm like, I ain't going to work for me. But when we do get the newcomers excited about the process, we tell them things like this. Newcomer, check it out. We want you to do, I don't know if there's any, I know they're giving some stuff away, but if you go to a meeting and there's a pamphlet there and you don't have it, newcomer, get the pamphlet, they're free, right? And if there's books there and you don't have that book, get the book. And if you don't have the money for the book, ask Lenny or one of these other good sharing ass old timers to buy you one, right? And if they refuse, steal the book. Now you can tell Brian Mack from Philadelphia, steal the books, because the stuff that's in the books is going to save your life. So I got the pamphlets, I got the books, I got all the stuff, and and then the newcomer, with like 90 days, is reading the books, and then they're in the meeting, and they're like, on page 76 in the recovery and relapse, it says we've never seen a person relapse who lives in, and if you like me, I'm now looking to do with 90 days, quoting the literature, thinking, this dude needs to stop quoting literature. Like, you need to, a newcomer, you need to share about your life, be honest. And then the newcomer looks at us and says, dude, you just told me to read all this stuff, to forget everything I ever knew, and now that I'm talking about the information that you told me to put in jest, now you're giving me a hard time about it? So that's what happens when you're a hater. I'm a hater. Don't try to be too smart. Don't try to be too cute. So I say all that to say that if you hear me quoting some literature today, it's your fault. And I came in here a blank slate. I got, like I said, my clean date was March 28th, 94. I got introduced to NA in October 19th, 1993. And the only reason I remember that is because I was 16. I had this crazy dope habit, and I was on probation. And I went in front of this guy named Judge Reynolds, and Judge Reynolds says, Mr. Mack, if you come back here, you've had 87,000 dirty urines. If you come back here, you got a couple felonies on your jacket. If you come back here one more time, I'm giving you juvenile life. So juvenile life in Philadelphia means 21. So I'm not that smart, but I'm like, man, I'm 16 and 21 is 5 years. That's like 1/3 of my existing life. I'm like, man, I can't do no 5 years. So I left the court to 1801 Vine Street in Philadelphia. I left there, and I was telling myself, man, you gotta leave the people alone. You know, you can't go around this guy, this guy, this guy. I'm saying that Leon, Tyrone, Jeff, you just can't, don't go near them, and maybe you can stay clean. Because this dope game is jamming you up. So don't go around them dudes, you won't do dope. And then I'm like, I get on the train, it's like, well, maybe you can still smoke weed a little bit, you know. And because you know the other guy's got the juice. You know, the juice never worked, by the way. You know the juice you take before you go see the PO so you get the clean urine? That never worked, right? So I'm like, man, I could get the juice to get the clean urine. The train goes by one stop. And I'm like, you know what? By the time I got from like Center City to North Philly, it's called Broad and Pike. I got to the Pike Street station. I got off the subway, and now I'm walking. And now I'm like, all right, I'm just going to do dope today, right? I'm just going to get X amount of bags because I was on this amount, and I'm just going to get this amount so I can walk the thing off by the time the guy comes to give me a urine. And so the next thing you know, that was in August. The next thing you know, it's October 19th. I hadn't been home yet. I was in high school, allegedly. You know, I hadn't gone to school. And then October 19th, you know, God, I want to say this, I'll get back to the story. Have you ever been struggling with something and feeling like things are happening to you, right? You know, like when the debts are high and the funds are low, and you feel like this is happening to me. And then it seems like the universe or God or something rearranges it. And if I can stay clean long enough, I'll be able to get this perspective to look back and say, that wasn't happening to me, it was happening for me. Because the world, the universe, God, whatever your belief is, was trying to rearrange something that was against my permission. And if I would just have let it, then it would have took me to where I needed to go. And so now looking back on October 19th, 1993, I can tell you that things was happening for me. At the time, they was happening to me. And what was happening to me on October 19th was I'd used all the drugs. I'd suffered a stroke that I didn't know I was suffering from. So I'm 16 years old, right? 16. Half my body's paralyzed. I didn't know. This girl, we had just robbed these people, and we ran with some older guys, and they wouldn't give me and this chick, Sue. Sue was nuts, right? So Sue and me were not allowed to have real guns. So I'm in this like trap house, and Sue, and things are moving a little funny. I'm not feeling right, and Sue is looking at me like she's concerned. And I didn't understand what was going on, and then I went like this and pulled my hand away, and my whole hand was full of blood. So then I looked in the mirror. Sue had shot me in the lip with a BB gun while I was suffering a stroke. So my hair, now see, I don't have hair now because that's what happens to some of us when you get older, right? But back then, I used to grow hair, and I couldn't afford the haircut. The haircuts were $5, by the way. I couldn't afford the $5 haircut because every dollar needed to be accounted for, right? There was no haircut. So I would give myself a haircut while I was nodding out. So I would be nodding out with a pair of the oldest, raggiest, clippers you ever turn on a pair of clippers and you're like, you just gotta turn them off because they, you get a screwdriver, you're trying. So I had those clippers, I'm on drugs, giving myself a haircut like this. I pop up and then, so I didn't really, so I had a patch of hair here, I had a patch of hair here, another patch of hair here. I don't even know what was going on in the back. I had a BB in my lip. Half my face was paralyzed. I weighed 110 pounds. And the best idea I had was, you should just go home, man. This is a problem. Like you're jammed up. I couldn't connect it to the drugs. I didn't think I needed a hospital. I was just like, you've been on the run and you need to go home, right? Maybe the disease is like, go home. You just go to school tomorrow. And like, I kind of pretend this whole thing hasn't happened. So I went home. I knocked on the door. My mom answered, and I can't imagine. I got a 17-year-old. I couldn't imagine seeing my 17-year-old in a condition like this. And talking about it now, like it used to be like, it was no big deal, but I couldn't imagine the heartbreak of her, looking at me like that, answering the door. What she did was she was smart enough to invite me in like there was nothing had gone wrong. She was like, come on in, your room's good, you look like you need a sandwich, I'll make you something to eat. She put me in the bedroom. She called the cops. I didn't know she called the cops. I'm in my room, right? So the next thing I know, I hear one of like the hard, it wasn't like your sandwich is ready. It was like a hard, and they're like, Brian, let us in. It's, and I'm like, so at that move, I'm like, you ever like in the midst of active addiction and come up with the first step says our best thinking resulted in us living like animals. Our best, the best idea you ever had. Like they make movies about best ideas. Where Tom Cruise is in Mission Impossible. He's got schematics laid out on the floor. He spends an hour and a half of the movie figuring out the schematic. He drops in with a wire. This is like what my life was. I put the schematics and the wire for the best plans I could come up with. Right? So I'm in this room with a best plan when the cops are knocking, and I got this door behind me, or I got this window. I'm on the second floor. I got a window behind me. And they're knocking on the door, and I say, the disease says, back up, and then run, and jump through the window. And in my mind, I could see it. Like, you ever see a cartoon where they jump through a wall, and it leaves like a silhouette? How they made it through. So in my mind, I was going to run and jump, and break the glass, hit the ground, and be out. So the cops, I used to say they broke the door. It probably wasn't even locked. They probably walked in. The cops walked in, and I went and ran and jumped. And what I'd failed to consider was that I weigh 100 pounds. I was having a stroke. I just got shot with a BB gun in my lip. So I just ran. The cops probably they probably still talking about this. I ran and just hit the glass, slid down. They put cuffs on me, and that was it. In my mind, this was going to be like a movie. Like I'm running away from ninjas, and but it's never like that, man. They put cuffs on me. They took me to detox, and then I had this doctor saying things to me like, "Listen, you're gonna be 17." No, that was later. He was like, if you keep using drugs the way you're using drugs, your body is shutting down, and you're not going to make it much longer. And in my mind, and probably out loud, I said, "What are you, a doctor or something?" Did you I didn't consider the source of when people are saying things to you like, "Bro, it is a whole problem the way you're living, and you need help." And that wasn't the end. That was the end of my time on the street. That was October 19th, 1993. I got locked up, went to detox, went to a treatment center, played games in there, went to a halfway house, sold drugs and played games in there. I got kicked out of there. They were talking about the juvenile life. They gave me one more shot. And I don't know if they have them out here or they used to. They're called therapeutic communities. It's like these back in the day, these places where they would make you wash the ramp with the toothbrush, and they would put a circle around of the other kids you were in there with, and they would beat you down. You ain't shit. You ain't never been ish. Your mom's ashamed. They would it was this crazy they'd make you snitch on each other. It was a 6-month program. I did 14 months because some are sicker than others. And by the time I got there, and I wish I could tell you that the last time I used was that cool, dope, stroke, BB gun Windows story. The last time I used, I was in what's called the center, which is like county for kids. I'm in the center, and we had like an art room, and I'm in the art room, and we talking about the getting and using and finding ways and means to get more. We're talking about, that when I will do anything to anybody to get the first step says that, you are capable of anything. You will break anybody. Method Man from Wu-Tang says, I'll stab my own mom in the back for a sack. I will do anything to anybody to get 5 minutes of relief of what it is to be me. I'll sleep with your wife. I'll do anything. I'll gamble all my money away. When I'm connected spiritually and I ain't doing 12 steps, I'll do anything. I'm not safe. If I call you and I say, hey, if I use ever and I call you for a 12-step call, don't come. That's a robbery. That's premeditation to a robbery, right? Just wait for me to come back. So it's like the middle of March, 1994, and I'm in this art class thing in this center, and I looked over to the right on the shelf, and I see rubber cement. And I look over to the left, and I seen like they had the brown paper bags. And I thought, man, that's, you could get high off some rubber cement. So I smuggled the rubber cement and the bag back to the cell I was in. And I'm in the cell and I pour the rubber cement. This is the last time I use. Nothing fancy. I put the rubber cement to my face and I'm huffing it, right? And then they call me out. Like, hey, Brian, I don't know, like they needed me to do something or they wanted something. And all I hear is, hey, Brian, 4A, come out. And I take the bag off and I'm like, rubber cemented out. And I got rubber cement all over my face. And now I'm paranoid that I'm about to get booked and I'm about to get juvenile 5 years for rubber cement face. And that was it. That was the last time I used. Scratching my face across, and I went from there to one of them, that long-term treatment center. And the best thing that happened in there was this woman named Rashida, she was a member of Narcotics Anonymous, and she gave me this white book that had meetings in it, and she said, listen, I need you to go to this meeting and ask for Roger. She gave me direct specifics because addicts we can't allow each other to roam around too much. We need adult supervision, right? Don't let me, flail around I'll mess up. My life, 27, I'll mess it up. I needed her to say, I need you to be, the meeting started at 7. She said, get there at 6:30 and ask for Roger, and he's going to tell you what to do. I got to the meeting at 6:30. Roger was this, flamboyant gay man, which I didn't and don't have a problem with, but he's like hitting on me, and I'm like 17 and I'm comfortable and insecure, and it was just like I thought she would connect me with somebody else. But I'll tell you, Roger's got like 34 years now, and saved my life. He said, "Get over there, and you see that coffee pot? Go make coffee." I said, "I ain't never made coffee a day in my life. I never drank coffee. I never made coffee." He said, "Go figure it out." He didn't tell me how to make it. He said, "If you don't figure it out, you'll mess it up, and then these like 150 black people are going to be yelling at you tonight," right? And so I was like, and sure enough, they're like, I made the coffee, I poured half the grounds in it, it was like rocket fuel, they were yelling at me. But I felt right away, just through a little bit of service, it connected me into something that I hadn't been connected. I had no connection, I was isolated. I hated myself before I got here. So that connection in Narcotics Anonymous, man, did something for me that it wasn't the treatment, it wasn't all the therapy, all that stuff's cool. It wasn't, the 14 months or the 23 months I ultimately did. It was the fact that people taught me this lesson that I carry today, that there's nothing more important than helping an addict get from day 1 to day 2. That's it. That's all we're doing here tonight. We're trying to help you get from, what's that? We're trying to help you get from Saturday to Sunday without putting drugs in you. All the other stuff is unimportant. There is a process in which we eventually connect to that helps us get from today to tomorrow without putting drugs in us. And it's a process which we read every night, where if you're like me, I don't listen to stuff. So it took me about 5 years to hear when you guys were reading this reading. I don't even know where I read. Here, let's go. It's called How It Works. And y'all read this. I mean, you read it tonight in Idaho. I ain't never been to Idaho. They read in Philly every night, so you read it tonight. You probably read it here every night. And in the beginning, I didn't listen. I memorized it. I got a friend of mine. He was talking about how we become good parrots in Narcotics Anonymous, right? And I've heard that, but then he said, a parrot is really good at saying words, but has no idea what they mean. Right, so I'll say I'm a good parent. I can say words. I don't know what they mean. I can't apply them in my life. I'm still a jerk off in the street. So the first reading or the first paragraph says, and I'm self-centered. So it says, Brian, if you want what we have to offer, so that is something that we call desire, and it says in our third tradition that desire is an unmeasurable commodity. So if you were in the meeting tonight and you shot dope in your car before you came in, you are as welcome and as a part of as the guy who's got 40 years. Right? If you've been running around playing the Suboxone and Methadone game for the last 10 years and you calling yourself clean, you welcome. You as welcome as the other guy. We're all the same. You can't, desire is an unmeasurable thing. I wanted to say, do you ever want to stop and use anyway? You ever been in an active addiction and said to yourself, like I was on a train, I was going home, there was no way I was using when Reynolds said if you use, you're going to do 5. I knew I wasn't using. I was high 10 minutes later. Right? I had the desire to stop. I didn't have the ability or the know-how to stop. So this desire thing is something that we can't judge people for having. If they're here, we assume you got it. Because people who don't have it aren't here. They're using right now somewhere out. They're in the street. So it says, Brian, if you want what we have to offer and are willing. And I'm not like I got locked up in 9th grade, got out, got GED, came down A. So that's pretty much, I did a little college. Ain't nothing to brag about. I got nothing to prove to you that I'm a smart person. Right? My sponsor had me get a dictionary, had me look up some words, so I got he said, if you want what we have to offer, something you can't judge. And that's a conjunction word. That means that you are going to connect the first sentence to the second one, and you need both. You can't leave one off without having the other. You're going to need both to get this third part of what we're saying. If you want what we have to offer, Brian, and you are willing to make the effort to get it. So willingness is something we can see. I can see if you're here. I can see if you're willing to read. I can see if you have a sponsor, Brian. I can see if you're calling your sponsor every day, Brian. I can see if you're writing on the step work, Brian. I can see if you're, asking for help. If you want what we have to offer, Brian, and you're willing to make the effort to get it, then you're ready to take certain steps. These are the principles that make recovery possible. So I was like, man, wait, hold on. So what this little 3-sentence paragraph that I heard read 10,000 times in 5 years, one day clicked and said, Brian, all the newcomers you be sleeping with? That ain't gonna help. That ain't gonna help you make recovery possible. I don't know about what your story is. None of y'all probably ever slept with a newcomer. That's So Brian, if you sleep with all these newcomers, that ain't gonna make recovery possible. Cheating on your girlfriend, B, that ain't gonna make recovery possible. Let's add some good stuff in. Brian, all them meetings you make and all that parroting you're doing trying to sound good so the people will clap for you because you don't have no self-esteem and you need the people to make you feel better about yourself without drugs, that ain't gonna help you. That's not recovery. Right? All them dances you be going to, speaker jams, conventions, everybody knows your name, right? All that stuff ain't gonna make recovery possible. It says these are the principles that make recovery possible. And then it lists them. Because God, so in the beginning, the basic text talks about how the literature was put together in some kind of like divine something. It isn't a religious connotation. It's just saying like, God had a hand with this because us by ourselves couldn't have written this, right? So, and it knows that, well, like we said, we need adult supervision and we need to be told, Brian, do the first step And then after you're done that, go to the second. It ain't that complicated. Do one and then do them in order. And here they are. And if you do them, your recoveries go, it's a possibility that you get to have it. If you do the 12 steps with a sponsor. Because the first step says, yo, B, we already talked about what your best thinking results in. Your best thinking got you trying to jump out a window when you lay lighter than a snowflake while you got dope ODing on dope. You know, so your best thinking is no good. You need a sponsor. Yo, listen, if you're in the room tonight and you identify as an addict and you don't have a sponsor, you need one before you leave. Yes. You know, you get a sponsor before you leave tonight. And if you are somebody who's got experience, strength, and hope in NA, and you got 12 steps, maybe you got 8 steps, I don't know what, you know, whatever. If you're somebody in NA and you got some experience, strength, and hope, and you're unwilling to sponsor somebody, you need to be willing to sponsor some people before you leave tonight. Because it says we can, I'm not, like I told you, I'm not that smart. So it says we can only keep what we have by giving it away. So only means exclusive, matchless, unaccompanied, unique, unparalleled, unrivaled, solely. I can only keep what I have by giving it to y'all. Listen, my wife, it was fine. We'll clean the Lenny thing up about my wife. I was at home, you know, me and Lenny and this dude talking, a whole bunch of other people. We'll talk about him in a minute, just because I need to. Listen, me and this dude stay in a room together, and I got duct tape. I don't want to put myself out there, right? I got duct tape and wires. You know, like the, what are they called? Zip ties. I got zip ties and wires, right? And duct tape ready for the guy, right? So that's our other story. I can only keep what we have by giving it away. You know, so I'm not going to, well, you know what? It's not true. I was excited to come to Idaho. I've never been to Idaho. I don't know anybody here except for, well, now I know all you fine folk. But before that, I only knew Lenny and his beautiful wife. And so I said to my wife, hey, listen, Lenny wants us to come to Idaho. You know, we're going to speaker jam, we're going to hang out. And my wife's like, I don't even know how, it's typical South Philly, Italian, you know, she's like, listen, it wasn't about the people. She goes like this. She's like, where do you want me to go? I was like, no, we're going to Idaho. She's like, fuck Idaho. Call me when there's a beach involved. She was like, you can bring Ben. Bring Ben with you. So it wasn't about the people. You guys are great. And she's probably mad because it was beautiful out here. You guys have been so, I came to the hotel and they had like Reese's peanut butter cups, which I'm addicted to, and waters, and Bill took me on a tour on the bikes earlier, the mountain skate. You know, this has been, you guys are phenomenal. And I was riding up, where were we?
Bogus Basin.
Wherever he just said. Bogus Basin? Yeah. Bogus Basin, and we're riding on riding on, Lenny gave me his bike, his beautiful Honda. It's immaculate. You go look outside. I was riding the Honda down the thing, and I'm like, only Narcotics Anonymous could have made this happen. Right. I mean, I would have never came to Idaho. And if I did come to Idaho, I would have been on the run from somebody. And there was no way Lenny would have been like, yeah, here, borrow my motorcycle, which I value more than Ben. Right? You know, so Narcotics Anonymous, and I'm telling you that it's the 12 steps that have made all this stuff possible, man. I got a sponsor still. I still do this step work because I've had a hard time. Like I said, it says some are sicker than others, and I'm some. I am part of the some that's looking for the easier. I have this mantra. So mantra is like, this like meditation for my life. And I've had it my whole life. And the meditation basically says, do as little as possible and get the maximum reward for it. How can you do as little as you can and get the maximum reward? You know, and I've chased that before using, I've chased it while using, and I've chased it in my clean time. Do nothing, get everything. I'm looking for that. If you got a line on that, get with me after the meeting. What turned out is that how it works, even the name how it works, makes me cringe a little bit because it's got the word work in it. I don't like work. I don't like alarm clocks. I don't like bosses. I don't like any of that. Even so, when I first got introduced to step work, it was like something I shuddered at. I wanted it to be called step play. I don't want to do no work. Like, get a dictionary and get a booklet and write. I'm like, what are you talking to? I just got done doing 2 years coming off dope habits, and the last thing I had was a 9th grade education, and you want me to write now? And they were like, yes, sir. Actually, we're going to require you to write if you want to get better. So I started on this process of the step process, man, and it has fundamentally transformed my heart and my spirit and taken me from someone who was completely, because we are all in different places in our clean time, so we see it. But I was somebody who was completely self-obsessed and self-consumed. When you're self-obsessed, it's self-centeredness. It's different than selfish. I thought I was like, I know I'm selfish, but you being a little bit hard on the guy, calling me self-obsessed and you go a little overboard. Calm down with all your adjectives with how bad of a person I am, right? Like I was talking to the basic text, because it says it in the basic text. I'm like, it's a little bit extra. But as I did the step work, I came to recognize that self-obsession is this inability to recognize that humans exist on the planet. And that sounds a little extreme, but when I look at my life and the things I do and the ways I've talked to people and the moves I've made, it shows that, how about that? My mother is an absolute saint. I love her. She's like the greatest. She should win an award, right? Every year. Still, she's a phenomenal woman. And in 1993, I was dragging this woman down the steps by, she had her pocketbook, and I'm dragging her down the steps trying to yank it out of her, right? So I could go get one more. And then when I got it off her, and I got the money, and I went and got one more, you know how I felt about it? I had no feelings about it, because that's what needed to be done, right? I had no feelings. And then when I got clean, and the drugs went, and I got tackled with an emotional, what's the word, like a tidal wave, right? An emotional tidal wave came over me, is when the self-obsession began to dissipate. The wall was broken, right? And the only thing I could connect with in the beginning wasn't that I had a drug problem, but that I had did some damage. And I wanted to go from detox to step 9, right? I didn't realize that, before you go apologize for some stuff, you got to learn how to not do the stuff that you get ready to apologize for. Before you can't amend something that you will break tomorrow. And those first 8 steps allow me to begin to get in touch with, the harm I've caused, the defects I've had. I got to inventory my life. I got to develop this relationship with what I call God, because it's one syllable, and I like to save time. And I don't know if it's just the East Coast. We talk real quick, and I'm trying to get it all done. So I just call it God. You could call it whatever you want. You could call it the river or the wind, or I just call it God. Because some things have gone on in my life that I have no explanation for. And I had to stay clean long enough, right? Like in this Living Clean book, it says right here, we're talking about things happening to us, that instead of happening, I used to say this is happening to me, but I found it was happening for me. And then here in the Living Clean book, it says, sometimes what we experience as failure is actually a redirection. So I remember I was clean, it was 2000, so I grew up in this crazy household, single mom. Before my dad left, he made sure to, beat me and my mom senseless with baseball bats. And I was the kid that had to go to school when I was in 2nd grade with a cast on my leg and broken ribs, and be like, I fell up the steps 3 times, this kind of stuff. So he made sure before he abandoned us that he completely traumatized us, right? And so he left, and then Years went by, I started using. My mom met this other guy when I was 11, and I made sure that I tortured this dude in every which way imaginable, right? You know, like, you ain't my dad, step pop, F out it, you know, all that kind of stuff, right? And listen, I was so crazy that when he married my mom when I was 16 and I was on the run, right? Him and my mom got married in that stretch where I was on the run when I ended up having the stroke. And his best man said to him, yo, are you sure you want to marry this lady with this psychotic kid? And he said, absolutely. You know, he loved her, and he's a good guy. You know, so you fast forward through active addiction, I get clean, and I got this anger and this rage on me, man, from the way I grew up and the circumstances I grew up, which isn't unique. We're in a room full of people who come from this stuff, man. And the 12 steps and a relationship with God helped me navigate my way through and release this stuff. And I remember being on this 4-step, you know, and addressing all this stuff with my dad and, you know, all that. And so that goes on, then the years go by, you know, life happens, and now it's like 2002, and I came up with this, so I was like selling real estate at the time, and I had this idea because I'm obsessed with music, all of it, any kind. I was talking to my man the other day, Misfits, Sepultura, Bad Brains, sick of it all, New York hardcore. At the same time, in 1986, I bought my first Eric B. and Rakim tape, you know, so I'm that dude too. And in 2003, I decided to, you know, start this magazine. I started a hip hop magazine in 2002. And by 2004, we were in 40 countries. I had 70 people working for me. I'd worked with every major label and major rapper you could think of up until 2010. I was making crazy paper, you know, and I was still making 4 meetings a week, right? So I was connected, and in 2008, if you're old enough to remember, some things happened in the economy, and it all, like, if you were winning in 2008, you were losing in 2009, right? Unless you were like part of some other stuff. And so I was winning in 2008. And then in 2008, I met this chick who, you ever like meet somebody and you're like, you know, you come over on Wednesday night around 11. You know what I mean? Not because necessarily you're embarrassed to be around her, but just because you ain't really ready to commit at all. And if I'm seen with you in the sun and somebody else sees us together in the sun, then that's like a commitment. Like, now I gotta, you know, we have to have conversation. So come over around 11. You know, we started doing like the come over around 11 move, you know, and then the magazine failed, and then she could cook really good. Yo, she could cook her ass off. That's part of my move. Like, she's like homemade pasta, and, you know, they call it gravy, you know, homemade pasta, Sunday gravy with her family, raviolis, stuffed shells. It's insane. I was like, I'm never leaving. You got these stuff, you know, and the magazine went away. And then she lived in what's called Northeast Philly. I lived in South Philly. So that doesn't really matter. What matters is it's, in my mind, it's cooler to live in South Philly than it is in Northeast Philly. You know, Northeast Philly's kind of like, you know, like you domesticated if you lived in Northeast Philly. I lived on Broad Street, 8 blocks from the stadiums, 4 blocks from Center City, 6 blocks from the Italian Market, 3 blocks from Gino's and Pat. You know, I'm good. I'm never leaving here. And then I'm with this woman, the magazine crumbles, now we're together for a year, I move up with her a year, which that's a no too, because I'd usually move in on a first date. That's like a first date move. You ever like start dating somebody, go on a first date and never left? It's like a year and a half later, you're wondering why your relationship's crazy. I've been in a couple of them, but I actually waited for this year to move in. I move in with this woman, and she has a 6-year-old son whose father had passed away from cancer not too long ago, right? So all of a sudden, now I'm jammed up about the fact that I had this company who was saying, if you could continue this magazine with the current projections you're going, we're gonna be talking about a $20 to $30 million buyout. So I come from the gutter. So I'm like, 30 million, it's unimaginable money. And I only got like one partner. So I'm like, I'm about to be rich. And then the 2008 happened, that thing went away. I had to fire 70 people. I had to let the whole thing go and figure out what I was gonna do. And now I'm dating this woman for a year, and I'm like, my life sucks. and I gotta find a new, figure out what I'm gonna do for work and how I'm gonna pay bills, and I figured all that out, and then I'm with this woman. We're living in Northeast Philly, which I told you I thought I didn't want to go to, and I got this 6-year-old kid, and I'm doing another 5th step. No, I'm doing another 11th step, and I'm on this 11th step, which says, we sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God. Improve means, like, you don't improve, like if you got a brand new house, you don't improve room. It's brand new, it's good. If you just rehabbed it, you're straight. So I improved. The 11th step is there because I consistently need to improve this relationship I have with God, because I can never really see myself coming on my own. And as soon as I think that relationship with God is good enough, the disease changes the way he does things. So I need God to kind of address that new change that the disease is putting on me in the present. So I'm on this 11th step, and I connect with this thing that says, you live in Northeast Philly, which you said you were never moving to. You got to mow lawns now. My man drove by, I was mowing the lawn. He texted me, he's like, "What's up, DB?" I was like, "What's DB?" He's like, "Domesticated brown." I'm mowing lawns now. See you with the lawnmower. I'm up in Northeast. I'm mowing lawns. I'm doing. The way they do math now is different than the way they did math. It's crazy. I'm like having to teach myself math, to teach this 7-year-old math, because his mom can't help him at all, right? Because, she can't. So I'm doing the math. I'm mowing lawns, doing math, living in the Northeast. And I'm in the midst of the 11th step, and I get connected to it didn't happen to you, it happened for you. And then I got connected because the self-obsession is gone. It happened to you because you needed it for somebody else. And so what happened was, I was in this broken, crazy, psychotic family situation when I was my son Anthony's age. When I was 7, I had 4 broken ribs from my real dad before he left. If he doesn't break my ribs, he's not there, he doesn't leave. Which means George, my step-pop, doesn't come in. If George doesn't come in, I never learned how to be raised by a stepfather. Fast forward 20 years. My magazine, which I thought I was about to make millions with, gets yanked. It happens to me. I meet this woman. I move up to the Northeast. She has a 7-year-old son. If the money never got yanked, I would have never moved to the Northeast. If I was never abused as a child, I would have never known what it was like to be feel abandoned, and I wouldn't have been able to be a step-pop and a father like I am to my son today. And you got to stay clean long enough, because all that stuff's painful. It's painful going through the trauma of childhood and the abuse and the abandonment and the loss of money and finances and where you think you're supposed to be vocationally or educationally. But I believe what God is doing is saying, no, listen, newcomer, old timer, in betweener, listen, if you're struggling today, you got to hold on, because tomorrow God is going to give you the clip. I would give that $30 million back to be this kid's dad. That's like the greatest gift I've ever had. So if you're new and you're not excited about if you're old and you're not excited about recovery, and you're new and you're not excited, we need those old people to connect with those new people, because it's those connections that creates the excitement. And then together, when that new guy becomes the medium guy, the old and the medium can then tackle the newcomers who come in, right? That's all we're doing, newcomer. We're trying to help you get from today to tomorrow. Thanks for listening.
So one more time for Brian Mack. So my home group, the home group, our home group, decided to, we seen this happen at a meeting over in Oregon on 2 weeks ago. Don't know what it says because I can't read it, but check this piece out, man. This is a crazy twist right here. I seen this happen in Oregon, and so our home group decided to buy this just to give Brian a gift for coming out here. So I just wanted you to all see it. My home group. Thank you, home group members. Pretty badass. Pretty badass. That's a nice little shot right there, man. That little thing. We've asked Wes to read just for today. Come on, Wes.
Not a single game. My name's Wes and I'm an addict.
Wes.
Just for today, tell yourself, just for today, my thoughts will be on my recovery, living and enjoying life without the use of drugs.
Just for today.
Just for today, I will have faith in someone in NA who believes in me and wants to help me in my recovery. Just for today, I will have a program. I will try to follow it to the best of my ability. Just for today, through NA, I will try to get a better perspective on my life. Just for today, I will be unafraid. My thoughts will be on my new associations, people who are not using and who have found a new way of life. So long as I follow that way, I have nothing to fear. Thank you.
If you'd like to join us in a circle around the perimeter, we're going to circle up and pray out here.
Hey, how many here? Real quick, we have around 673 years of recovery in the room. Thank you.
Brian, where are you at, homie? Oh, go ahead and close the meeting, homie.
We have a moment of silence for all the addicts suffering in and out of the circle, followed by the serenity prayer. God,
Grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Keep coming back and worship you.